We have reached the Super Bowl, and of course, Nick at NAA Fantasy is going to come on and talk about how we should attack this by the DFS side of things. Nick, how you doing today, my man?
Great. I'm excited for the Super Bowl Sunday coming up. How about you?
I'm excited. Sad to see the season end, but this opens up the work for the off season. We all know the work in the off season has to start now. If you missed last week's podcast, go to the YouTube channel. Nick and I tell you each. So 6 guys to fade, 6 guys to target, 3 each going into next year. This is when we have to start to make this stuff because the stuff that happened the last season is fresh in our mind. So this is why we need to be on point for this and doing this. So if you guys haven't checked that out, you missed it, go to my YouTube channel, ETOF21 Sports, check it out. Nick and I give you an early look into next season. But this week, we're here to talk about the Super Bowl. And what we're going to do, since it is the showdown slate, we're just going to go by position, give you our thoughts on every guy. If there's some guy we really like, some guy we don't like, and then you can build your own lineup accordingly. We're going to start out with the quarterback position. We're going to start out with the MVP, Patrick Mahomes. Where is your thought with him?
He's still got the question mark around his ankle. The Eagles pass rush might be able to get home on him. Could injure it even more. The question mark is, can the Eagles or the Chiefs offensive line block the Eagles? And then, there's a lot of injuries to the Chiefs playmakers. There's still a question mark with Kelsey's back. Mecole Hardman is out. So who's Mahomes going to be throwing to? There's other injuries lying out there, but it's Patrick Mahomes. I mean, he's still going to get the ball out to whomever is open. He's able to make incredible plays every game. He's still averaging 25.3 points per game, and he's the best quarterback in the game right now. So
it's kind of crazy. As you said, he's the best quarterback in the game. Just won the MVP, like you said, led the league in passing yards, 25.3 points per game, scored the most points in terms of fantasy player. He was fantasy football's #1 player. It's hard to go against him. It's really hard when you say that out loud, but this Eagles defense is elite. Where's your head with Jalen Hurts?
Again, I mean, Hurts has got a shoulder injury. He's nursing still. We saw him miss some throws last game against the 49ers. If the Eagles get up early in this game, how much is he really going to throw? Is the rushing upside still there for him? I'm leaning towards no, just due to his injuries. I think they're trying to save him a little bit. It is a Super Bowl, though, so you never know. He may go all out. But, the other thing is, how does this Lane Johnson injury affect the pass protection for the Eagles as well?
If I'm Spagnuolo, I'm lining Chris Johnson up over Landon Johnson. Sorry, Chris Jones up over Landon Johnson all the time until they make an adjustment. And then what is that adjustment? Do you have Stroll come in to be an extra blocker, thus taking a wide receiver weapon off? I don't know. It's going to be a very, very interesting chess match. Now, let me ask you this. Let me just ask you this. Let's say we're doing the segment. It's week 11, week 10, whatever. Eagles fully healthy. Chiefs fully healthy. Perfect weather. Perfect everything. And it's a regular slate, and we had to pick one of these guys. Who do you think you would pick?
Mahomes.
Yeah. I mean, you kind of got to. You kind of have to.
Yeah.
Now, with the running back position, it's really interesting with the running back position. We're going to start with Philadelphia, and we're not going to talk about Boston Scott. All this Boston Scott stuff, he can just go away. Boston Scott can go away. He can just go away. We're going to focus on Miles Sanders and Kenneth Gainwell. Now, I wanted to get your thoughts about Gainwell because the thing that interests me about Gainwell, if the Eagles get down, they're going to have to throw the ball the Chiefs gave up the fourth most receiving yards to opposing running backs. Is Gainwell, if I think the Chiefs are going to win, doesn't Gainwell make more sense to play than Sanders?
Yeah, if the Eagles are playing from behind, yes. Gainwell's got more upside there for sure.
Now, where's your head with Miles Sanders?
So, we know that the Chiefs have only given up about 81 yards on the ground to opposing running backs this year. They have given up the fourth most yards in the receiving game to opposing running backs, like you said. But with this most likely being Sanders' last game with the Eagles, I think they're going to give him the ball, give him more carries, and especially if they get up early, they're really going to try to get him a rushing touchdown. I think he's going to get at least one in this game.
The thing that wouldn't surprise me, to piggyback what you said, hypothetically, let's say first quarter, Sanders scores. Second quarter, whatever. Sanders scores, give them like a 7-0, 7-3 lead. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say they do that. Okay. Then let's say he gets another one. So he's sitting on 2. They're up 14-3, whatever. I think because it's his last game, and what Nick and I mean by that is he's an unrestricted free agent going into next season. And with the Eagles salary cap situation, we don't see a world where they can re-sign him. I think they try to give him, you know what I mean? I think they try to get him a couple more TDs because it is a swan song there, if that makes sense.
Yeah. We could easily see a James White type game, like Patriots Falcons back in the day. James White, 3 or 4 touchdowns in that Super Bowl? 3 touchdowns.
For a reminder, because I had a James White MVP ticket in that game at like 80-1, and he should have won it.
And he should have won it, not Brady.
But it's just absolutely disgusting.
I know.
For the reminder.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Now, in terms of the Chiefs, very interesting side note, Chiefs did activate Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Kind of the elephant in the room. We really don't know what to expect of whose carries is going to cut in. Is he actually going to play? We really don't know what we're going to get from him. So that leaves us with Pacheco and McKinnon. Let's start with Pacheco.
Pacheco, I love Pacheco. He's my guy. Now, McKinnon has really taken a back seat lately, and he's been a zero factor in the rushing game since the Houston Texans game. So the only worry for me is if the script gets away from the Chiefs and they get down early, then Pacheco, he doesn't have a lot of receiving upside. In the last few games, he's actually had more receptions down the stretch, but it still does bring down that value a little bit. So the key thing that I think we need to watch, though, is the game day actives. And if the Chiefs activate multiple tight ends, then we could definitely see a heavy rushing attack from the Chiefs. And that would be where Pacheco would definitely eat in this game.
Now, you said something really interesting when we're talking about the running backs. You've mentioned a couple times how you think the game is going to play out.
Mm.
So basically, how I'm interpreting what you're saying is if I think the Eagles are going to win comfortably, I'm going to go with Sanders and McKinnon. If I think it's the flip that the Eagles are going to win comfortably, the Chiefs, I'll go with Pacheco and Gainwell. Am I understanding what your thought process correctly there?
Yeah, I think that's the best strategy for this, depending on which way you think the game is going to go. Yes.
Now let's switch our attention over to the wide receiver position. Obviously, we'll start with the Eagles first. I mean, let's start. It's always funny. Everyone always says wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2, lead wide receiver. you can kind of make the argument that the Eagles actually have two wide receiver ones in AJ Brown and Devontae Smith. Where are you going to use? Are you like, where's your head at with these guys?
I mean, it's tough because I mean the Eagles do a great job of creating mismatches with both of them. So, and they have huge advantages here against the Chiefs DBs. I mean, as we all know, the Chiefs secondary is not great. Snead got hurt, and we still don't know what his playing status is right now. Um, and that means that Joshua Williams could see playing time. And I'm pretty sure, Eric, you could beat him in coverage. So
Nick, I think you're really underestimating how quick my first step is off the release. I really think, you're underestimating that, my ability to high point a ball. Oh, I have every route in the route tree. I really think you're underestimating my prowess and the being able
hey,
to.
I said you could beat a professional football corner. Okay, I'm not selling you short.
And I think the important thing to remember is they're dealing with some rookies. They
Yeah.
got McDuffie and Watson, and I just don't know if, because we made such a big deal of Brock Purdy leading up to this. Now we need to make a big deal of these guys. Are these guys going to be able to handle stuff in pressure situations? And then we kind of look at, if the Chiefs can't stop the run, they play cover two. What does cover two do? It hides your DBs. So if they can't play cover two because the Eagles have to run, they're going to have to play cover one. Then that's going to open up stuff for Smith and for Brown.
Right.
Let's say if I said, Nick, you have to pick one. You have to pick one. Who would you go with?
I'm actually gonna go with Devonta Smith because he's had 5 receptions or more in 14 of the 19 games he's played this year. We all know that AJ Brown has that big playability, but I feel like he's going to be the guy that gets more attention. And I really like Smith. I think he's a great wide receiver 1.5, let's say, since they both are basically a wide receiver one. So.
I think Smith is a stud. I like Smith a lot. I think he's going to eat. I think Brown could eat too. I think,
Yeah.
so it's kind of, I would say this though. In your showdown slate, you need to have one in your lineup.
Yes, absolutely.
You
One of those.
Yeah. You need to pick which one, and you need to take a stand against another one. Now, the other two wide receivers we've seen that have gotten run are Quez Watkins and Zach Pascal. Any one of those guys as a long shot dart throw, as a punt, that you'd be interested in?
I mean, Quez Watkins is, his production's down since, Goddard started playing again. So he's really a no-go. But Pascal's interesting. He's a better blocker. But with Johnson being banged up, maybe we'll see Pascal playing more to help with the blocking, and he might be a dart throw. But at this point, I'm not throwing him in the lineup.
Okay. Now, let's shift our attention over to the Kansas City side of the ball. Obviously, Mr. TikTok himself, Juju Smith-Schuster, is next. Any thoughts on Juju?
Juju, he's lined up in the slot 41% of the time this year, and with the uncertainty of Maddox's injury, this could be a matchup that the Chiefs actually exploit. Juju's also needs to play 50% of the snaps in this game to get a $1 million bonus. So I think he's going to be out there.
I'm saying it right now. Juju's active.
Yeah,
Juju's playing this game, and he's going to play 50% of the snaps.
He wants the money. He's getting his money. Now. So yeah, he's going to be out there, and he's going to get his playing time. So
I think that would be a guy in the Chiefs to kind of take a gander at. I know most people are going to look at Kelsey, which we'll get to in a little bit. Now, let's shift our attention over to the law firm, MVS. And the thing about him is I got an interesting text message from one of my buddies who's a scout in the league during the AFC Championship game. And his text message read, Mahomes leaning on MVS to the Super Bowl, just like everyone predicted. So he's obviously coming over off his career game. I never like playing a premium for someone that just had their best game ever. Do you think, I guess, where's your head at? Do you think we can repeat it? Do you think he's like an upgrade from where he is, a downgrade, or can we expect the same production from what we saw from him in the Bengals game?
I really don't see him getting the same production from that Bengals game. I mean, the Eagles give up the third fewest plays of 20 plus yards during the regular season. And what is MVS's big thing? Big plays downfield. I mean, he played for the Packers. I know exactly what Rodgers did. He always tried to throw that 40, 50-yard pass down to MVS and try to get him that big play downfield. But the Eagles just don't give that up. So 60% of his production came when he was lined up outside, where he's going to be facing either Slay or Bradbury. And I just don't see him getting those numbers. And he's not worth the price, in my opinion.
And some of this stuff is just common sense. Slay and Bradbury, phenomenal corners. He's lining up there 60% of the time. And they've given up the third fewest plays of 20 yards. He's not an underneath guy. He's a field stretcher type of guy. It doesn't make any sense.
Exactly.
Next, we have the modern day Percy Harvin, Kadarius Toney. And why do I call him that? The one thing with Harvin is he'd always be hurt. He would always have some sort of injury. And I really feel that's where Toney is right now, that he always has some fluky injury. I just don't think this guy likes to play football, but that's not me to speculate. Where's your head with Kadarius Toney?
Yeah, kind of the same thing. I mean, obviously the injuries he's dealing with, and again, the Eagles don't give up a ton of explosive plays. So I'd anticipate his usage to ramp up, towards the red zone if the Chiefs are in the red zone a lot, but I don't know if he's somebody I'd really lean on. He really disappointed in the AFC Championship game a couple of weeks ago too. He had one catch. I mean,
part of me kind of feels they're trying to make him into a poor man's. Don't get me wrong, a very poor man's. Very, very poor man's Tyreek Hill.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
not even close.
But no, sometimes how I feel when I'm watching these games, they're just getting so gimmicky with them like they would with Tyreek instead of having Tyreek stretch the field. I feel there's getting a little too gimmicky with them.
Yeah, I agree with you there.
Next one, my man. He was actually missed the AFC Championship game. Justin Watson. What do you think about him?
I mean, he's a deep deep home run threat here. He missed AFC Championship game due to an illness, but he's actually sported a 50% snap rate in 9 of his previous 10 games. So he's a dart throw, in my opinion.
And if they're lacking, like if Hardman can't go, which I don't think Hardman's going to be able to go.
No, Hardman's out.
Yeah. So if Toney Smith, we're going through these guys. If he's the only one there, he's the only one there. He can be worth a dart throw. And with his price point, all it takes is one play. If that play is a touchdown, you're in it.
Yeah.
Sky Moore. Where's your head with him?
Another dart throw here. I mean, he can line up inside and outside, but he actually posted most targets in a game his last outing, but again, the Eagles aren't giving up big plays here. So he is a dart throw. He could get some underneath stuff, but he's not going to get the production that you're looking for if you're trying to get a big point production here.
Or sometimes he returns kicks, returns punts. Maybe he can break one of those. You get that. But my thing is this, and this is just me. When these fringe guys MVS, Sky Moore come off career games. I don't want to be chasing the previous week. Because of that, out of principle, I feel I can't use them. You may differ. Do you differ, or do you think the same way? Or
No, I think the same way because their prices balloon up, and people go after that, but they're not worth it because they're not consistently doing that week in and week out. So I go in a different direction every time.
now, in terms of defenses, both these defenses can get to the quarterback. I believe the Chiefs led the AFC in sacks. The Eagles led the NFC in sacks. But I really only think if you think this is going to be a lower scoring game, then you play one of the defenses. Do you think this game is going to be that lower scoring?
I don't think it's going to be that low scoring. I don't think it's going to be a under 20 points on each side. I think they're both teams are going to score over 20 points.
So with that being said, defenses would you agree defense would be off the board then, or?
I mean, you can still get points off of defenses. So I think in my opinion, I lean a little bit more towards the Eagles D over the Chiefs, just because overall statistically they're better. They could still give up over 20 points and still have a solid game with sacks and maybe some turnovers. So,
I would lean to the Eagles if I had to pick one, but I can't play the Chiefs.
No.
Now, in a rarity, we have two of the top 5 fantasy football tight ends. Dallas Goddard, and Travis Kelce. Talk to us about both.
Kelsey's he's still got that back injury, trying to figure out if he's 100% healthy or not. Chiefs were lining him up outside against the Bengals. And we're trying to limit him getting hit. But
yeah, they kept on doing that weird. Like it seemed like every time they lined him inside and he ran a hook, it was like a hook and lateral. It was like they were trying to avoid him getting hit.
Yeah.
So if he's got to line up in the outside and he's lining up against Bradbury and Slay, I think that's a real tough matchup.
It is. We'll see. I mean, after 2 weeks after the back spasm issue, I mean, he might be able to, be a little bit closer to 100%. He's still going to go out there and give it his all because he's Travis Kelce. But yeah, we'll see who actually covers him.
It's going to be interesting to see what they do with Kelce. Eagles do kind of run a pass funnel defense. Stuff will be opened up underneath. I do think that, me personally, you got to, if you think the Chiefs are going to win, you have to stack both. Or do you just play one of them if you think the Eagles are going to win?
Yeah.
That's kind of the way you have to start thinking about this. Because one thing that's important that we need to remember is when we make these lineups, how we think the game's going to play out in our head, that's what our fantasy football is going to dictate. If we think that, hypothetically, this isn't the case for me, let's say I think the Chiefs are going to win 42-7. I'm not going to have Miles Sanders, Jalen Hurts. You know what I mean? I'm going to have it, okay, Chiefs defense, Patrick Mahomes. I'll have Kenneth Gainwell pass it. I'll have Travis Kelce. That's what I need. That's how you got to build it. And it's important to remember this because a lot of the people that message me asking for help, I kind of feel, and no offense to those listening, that you're just trying to fill the salary in and not have your lineup tell a story, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Right. You're just trying to take the whole salary cap and just get it to zero.
Which isn't the case, because I'll be honest, when I've had my best hits, I've had $1,000 or $1,500 left over.
Right. Got to play the matchups.
The last one, Dallas Goddard. Thoughts?
The Chiefs run a pass funnel system, so how are the Eagles going to use him? We could see him in the slot a little bit, Again, with that funnel system, Goddard could actually do very well in this game. Getting out quick, some quick passes, especially if they do line him up in that slot area. So I actually kind of like Dallas Goddard here.
I think Goddard's a serious dude. And again, if you think the Eagles are going to win, that's going to be a guy. So just kind of remember, hypothetically, if I think the Chiefs are going to win, I'll probably have Mahomes in my captain spot. I'm going to do Pacheco. I'll take Kenneth Gainwell because they're going to be forced to pass. The Eagles will. And then I'll just kind of go from there. If I think the Eagles are going to win, that's going to be the tricky thing. I think you have to put either Sanders or Hurts in your captain position, go from there, but include McKinnon because the Chiefs will be down and they'll be forced to pass. So this is always kind of an interesting thing. There's not as much variance. Nick and I like it where there's a full 16-game slate. We can dive in and have a debate about which Houston Texan wide receiver is it to target. These games, when there's just one, look, you got to get lucky and you have to think outside the box what other people aren't going to do. And you need one of those guys to be on your roster and that guy to produce. Always fun. Nick, I really immensely appreciate you coming on here during the season. We started this up about week 12. Pretty successful. You've been listening throughout the whole way. We're going to have this back next year where we'll be doing this from week 1 on out. So I'm really looking forward to that. But also on top of that, Nick and I will be doing little stuff leading up to the start of the season, looking at some rookies where we're interested where they're drafted going to. That we'll do that one after the draft. But then also kind of going through, okay, quarterback rankings and whatnot right now at the end of the season. And we're going to keep those, and then we're going to make adjustments to them right before the season. So the next week or two, we'll start with the tight end position and just kind of give our early tight end rankings and just like little tidbits why we have them. So make sure you're on the lookout for that. That's going to be coming out in a couple weeks. Nick, I'd like to thank you for taking time out of your day on a Friday. For those, obviously no one else would listen. We had a little technical issues on my part. Thank you, Xfinity Comcast. You guys are obviously the best. I appreciate that. So I apologize for that, Nick. Why don't you tell everyone where to find you on social media?
You can find me at NAA Fantasy on Twitter. And Eric, it's always been a pleasure. I look forward to continuing this week after week until we get to next year's football season.
Looking forward to it, my friend. And before I let you go, why don't you give your prediction? Who do you think will win and what the score is?
Oh, I think the Eagles will win the game 28-24.
Ooh,
what about you?
Game. I think the Eagles will win 24-10, 28-17, something around there. So that's kind of I think it's going to be.
So we both think the Eagles are going to score 28.
Both think the Eagles are going to be around there. So. Nick, I'd like to thank you for coming on, my man. We will talk soon, my friend.